very moment. So guys, as you know, yesterday I was telling you that um, we had some homework. We were talking that we had some homework from the previous from Tuesday. Um, that we from the other book Right to be Read, the book where we are using for our writing assignments and for that basically. So we need to have a look at that exercise that we did, and then we're gonna have an explanation of a topic that we discussed yesterday partially, but we need to go a little bit deeper into that. Okay. So guys, I will share my screen so you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the homework we had. So we had to work on these two pages, basically, on the exercise we have here. So, so as you can see here, we had to do basically two different writing exercises, right? So in the first one, here, exercise A, you guys had to choose one of these questions and you had to write a very short text. And it was, as it says here, at least 75 words on each of them on the on your notebooks or anywhere. So you had to choose two of these questions and then write around 75 words on each of them. So it's like it was a very short text on that. The second exercise that you guys had to do, which is this one, you guys have to choose again around two topics, and then you have to write for around 30 minutes. So it was not like you need to write a certain like length or something. It was also something you could do freely, but basically it was more about the time. Like you had to take around 30 minutes to write on that, and that's it. So it's like in this moment, you guys should have two different texts, and we are going to work on the second, which is this. Okay, so by now, I suppose you guys have a text, right, that you wrote yourselves. So the first question I have for you guys is if you actually have the text, if all of you guys have the text, or if anybody has any problem with that, so we can see if we have to do something about it. So do you guys have that text here? Hello?
Well, yes, teacher, I have it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. What about the rest of you guys?
I have.
Me too, teacher.
Okay, guys, excellent. So that's actually the next part. That's the next thing we're gonna do in this moment. So I hope you guys have the text, well, of course, on a digital format, since you are going to share it with the others. So yes, we need to have this text, and then basically what we gotta do is to share the text with somebody else. So we need to share it with someone, and this other person is going just to read it and give you some feedback on that text. So that's this person is going to tell you basically um, uh, how the text looks, and if it makes sense to them, if they can understand, and everything. So I'm thinking of a better way to do it, because what I believe is that if we do this exercise in this very moment, I'm already like foreseeing certain issues we could have, like you can see that we may have problems with that. So let me think how we can do this better, so we don't have any sort of problem with that. Mm, let me think. So guys, this is what we're gonna do. What we are going to do is, I assume you guys have the text already. You have the text. So I need you all to write it on a digital format. And I think for that, we're gonna use Google Drive. So today I will create a share folder on Google Drive, and you guys have to upload your texts there. Okay, so it's very simple. What you guys have to do is to upload your texts just with your name. So the file should have your name. So I'm going to show you how we can do that. So it's going to be something very, very simple. And once you upload the texts there, I will assign, you know, the pairs for review, and we can do that exercise. I think we may do that tomorrow for sure. So let me just show it to you. So for instance, I will share, you know, it's like, this is going to be very obvious, but I prefer to do it. So I will share the link to the Drive folder with you. So it will look something like that. So the only thing you have to do is to create a Google Docs file. You copy paste your text there, and then you have to name your file after your name. Okay, so it's like the name of the file should be your name. Okay, that's all you have to do. So that's something you have to do today. And that tomorrow, when we start a session, I'm going to assign the pairs, so you guys will do the corrections exercise. I mean, not correction, but feedback exercise. That's something we're gonna do tomorrow morning. Is it clear, guys, how we're gonna deal with that? Yep.
Yep.
Excellent. So as we finish the session, I will share the link to Google Drive, so you guys can do that. Okay, that's how we are going to do that. Okay. Okay, guys. So let me look for something else. Okay. So as I said also yesterday, we in the yesterday session, we were working on relative clauses, right? And we saw that it was not that obvious. That is somehow, you know, confusing to talk about what that is. So when we use the word clauses, we perhaps don't know exactly what we mean by that, right? And that's part of what I expect to work on today. So this is a word that we looked yesterday, and we were kind of confused, right? So we're talking about clauses yesterday, and the exercises that we did yesterday were about that, clauses. So that's part of what we're gonna do, or we're gonna see today. So yes, guys, basically we're gonna have this presentation on language conventions, and as a spoiler, we are going to have a little quiz on this during this week. Okay, so that might be for sure on Friday. So yeah, like I'm just telling you, that we're gonna have a quiz on this specific topic, and that might be on Friday. So guys, it's all about language conventions. So basically, we have 3 different objectives with this topic. So as you can see here, give me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, basically these are the 3 objectives we have. So to understand the types of convention errors that are regularly addressed. So it's like when we correct texts and we say like we have this kind of problem, for example, you need to know why this problem is a problem, right? So that's something we'll see. We're gonna learn to identify the ways in which coordination and subordination in a sentence, as well as part of the structure, can cause errors of convention. So we'll see what coordination and subordination is, or what it implies in a text. So that's also very important. Now we're gonna recognize how end of sentence and internal punctuation works. So it's all about syntax, as you can see. So yeah, we're gonna, that's essentially what we are going to do here. So there are also some guiding questions. So for example, what are the expectations for grammar and spelling in typical academic writing? So when, for example, that's the case of the critical review that you guys did for the book. So these kinds of texts have a very specific structure, right? And that's what I said when when I graded those works, I said like, please keep these files, keep these works because we're gonna go over them later. And the thing is that, just to give you an example, there were some sections, some segments of those pieces of writing that were highlighted in green color, and I said, this is not a mistake itself, but it's something about the style. It's something we expect to be different in this kind of case. So that's just an example of the expectations that we have when we are working on a academic text. It's like they have a different structure. It's not just about making sure that the grammar is okay, but also to know that the structure itself is different. So when we write academic texts, we are doing something different than just writing in English. It's not the same thing. Also, how are the expectations different from when you text or post on social media, for instance? That's something you need to keep in mind. So when you write an academic text, it is not the same thing as just texting or posting something on social media. And actually, we need to learn to do both things. We need to know that, for example, if you are texting or if you are posting something on social media and you use a very academic structure, that would be absolutely weird, for example. So we need to know that those differences are also like understandable. What are the kinds of errors you need to avoid in academic writing? So essentially, for example, the subject-verb agreement. So it's, the conjugation, which is quite obvious. Also the use of contractions or certain vocabulary which is not appropriate, for example. Another important point, something that happens a lot, and I believe we need to really work on that, is the length of the sentences. You see, so sentences in English are not as long as they are in Spanish, and sometimes that's something that I noted, and is that in some cases, for example, we had sentences that were one paragraph long, so it was like a super long sentence, and that's of course something we need to correct. And you need to understand what are your strengths and weaknesses in this area. In some cases, I could say that some have a very interesting vocabulary you guys were using there. So you guys had the chance to use very specific vocabulary, and that's really good, to be able to play with words that way. That's of course something which is very positive. But also in some other cases, the problem was more related with punctuation, as I said before. So that was clearly something we need to have a look at. So yes, guys, that's more or less how it goes. So now we're going to watch this video, which is super cool, which is called Introduction to Grammar. So it will tell you exactly what language, in general terms, what language conventions is. And yeah, that's more or less how it goes. So let me just share the sound as well. Where is it? Here we go.
Hi, everyone.
Can you listen, guys?
My name is David, and
Yep.
Yes, teacher.
Great. So let's see this.
Hi, everyone. My name is David, and I'm here to introduce you to grammar on Khan Academy. Welcome. I'm so glad you could join me. So let's start by asking the question, what is grammar? What is this thing? Why is it worthwhile to study it? Why would you want to put up with listening to me? Well, first of all, grammar is a set of conventions and rules that govern language. So what's the difference between a convention and a rule? Well, a rule is kind of the bare minimum of what it takes to make your language understandable by other people, right? So in order to make a car work, for example, in order to make it move forward as intended, the wheels have to go on the bottom instead of on the roof. That's a rule. The idea that all cars should be painted teal, for example, is a convention. Now, is that true, that all cars should be teal? No, not necessarily, but that leads me to my second point, that grammar is context dependent. The kind of grammar that you use throughout your day changes. It depends on who you're talking to, what you're trying to say, and how you're trying to say it. And so we use multiple kinds of grammar throughout our days and throughout our lives. Another thing you need to know is that you already know so much grammar just from living and existing in the world and talking to other people. You know how to put a sentence together. If you can understand me, then you know so much about grammar. You know more than I can teach you. What these videos are for is to give names to the things you already know, to give you a greater command of them. And I want to say too that these videos are only about a very specific kind of grammar. It's called Standard American English. But I want you to know that there are many Englishes. And you know what? They are all great. They are all wonderful and vibrant and important and special. And what I do not want for you to take away from these videos is that I'm trying to teach you what is right and what is wrong. If the kind of English you speak doesn't sound like the kind of English I speak, that is okay. You know, you are great. What I want to do is give you the tools to harness language, to harness English, and use it any way you want. I mean, I'm saying I don't care what color your car is. It could be pink, it could be green, it could be purple, it could be paisley, you know? I'm just trying to make sure your wheels are on straight. You are a grammarian. You have made a study of grammar throughout your entire speaking and reading life. And I firmly believe that you can learn anything. Welcome to Grammar on Khan Academy. David out.
Okay, guys. So that was really cool. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, guys. So as you can see here, basically the objective of this video was to get you a little bit closer to what a convention is, right? So we are talking about language conventions today. So in that case, we need to, if we are talking about language conventions, one of the first things we need to know is what a convention is. So guys, based on the explanation from the video, I'd like to know if you guys, if somebody could tell me what a convention is then. What is a convention according to the video? Did you guys see it very well? What could be a convention according to what we saw on the video? Okay, guys, so we are gonna do it this way now, as you guys are like super.
I want to say something.
Yes.
Is that well, I am a little bit confused because is the rules that we already know that for example, the car. We know that the car, the wheels will be in that position and not in the other position. That is the rule. And a convention, I think that a convention is the things that we like, the things that we already know. For example, like the grammar. Talking about the grammar, well, we already know that grammar because we can understand the person as he said. So I think that it could be a convention.
Okay, well, the first part of what you, thank you very much, Felipe, by that. The first part is absolutely true. So yeah, grammar has to do with that, with the rules. So grammar is the rules basically. So it's like, for example, if we are talking in Spanish, we know that the subjects go first before the verbs, right? So you say, yo entiendo. We don't say entiendo yo. I mean, it's like in both ways it's somehow acceptable, but the first one is the rule. That's how Spanish is spoken. Let's say, you see, or you say yo entiendo, no yo entender, for example. So that's the rule, right? So that's how it works. But convention is something else, right? So conventions is not just about the rules itself. It's about something else. So this is what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna watch the video a second time, but this time I'm going to turn on the subtitles, okay? And then I will organize breakout rooms for around 3 to 4 minutes, and that's what I'd like you to discuss. I need you to watch the video and then in the groups discuss about what's the difference between conventions and rules. You see, we need to understand that. So we know that grammar is the rules, right? But in this case, what's the difference between rules and conventions? You see, we need to, the point here is that we need to explore and understand what conventions are. So for example, Clara says a specific structure to write sentences with words. That sounds like grammar, right? That sounds like the rules. But once again, I need you to, let me just put it here. I need you to understand, to explore the difference between rules versus conventions. That's what I'd like you to discuss. That's where I would like you to get. Okay, so we're going to watch the video again, as I said, this time with subtitles. But remember that what we need to do here is to see or to understand what's the difference between rules and conventions. And once we understand this, when we think about language conventions, perhaps that's going to be a little bit easier, you see, and you'll understand a little bit better what language conventions are. So we're going to watch the video again, as I said, guys. And
hi, everyone.
This time, I'd like you to focus on that, okay? I'd like you to focus on the difference between rules and conventions. And pay attention to the example, pay a lot of attention to what I said before, which is this metaphor he uses on the car. Also, as you can see here, guys, this Khan Academy is a platform in where you can learn like about pretty much anything, and they get some really interesting videos about grammar. So this is really cool. So perhaps if you want, you can check those explanations later. So let's watch the video again, and remember, focus on answering this question. We need to answer this question. What's the difference between rules and conventions? That's what we need to know in this moment, okay? Wait a minute. So please, buddy.
Hi, everyone. My name is David, and I'm here to introduce you to Grammar on Khan Academy. Welcome. I'm so glad you could join me. So let's start by asking the question, what is grammar? What is this thing? Why is it worthwhile to study it? Why would you want to put up with listening to me? Well, first of all, grammar is a set of conventions and rules that govern language. So what's the difference between a convention and a rule? Well, a rule is kind of the bare minimum of what it takes to make your language understandable by other people, right? So in order to make a car work, for example, in order to make it move forward as intended, the wheels have to go on the bottom instead of on the roof. That's a rule. The idea that all cars should be painted teal, for example, is a convention. Now, is that true, that all cars should be teal? No, not necessarily, but that leads me to my second point, that grammar is context dependent. The kind of grammar that you use throughout your day changes. It depends on who you're talking to, what you're trying to say, and how you're trying to say it. And so we use multiple kinds of grammar throughout our days and throughout our lives. Another thing you need to know is that you already know so much grammar, just from living and existing in the world and talking to other people. You know how to put a sentence together. If you can understand me, then you know so much about grammar. You know more than I can teach you. What these videos are for is to give names to the things you already know, to give you a greater command of them. And I want to say, too, that these videos are only about a very specific kind of grammar. It's called Standard American English. But I want you to know that there are many Englishes. And you know what? They are all great. They are all wonderful and vibrant and important and special. And what I do not want for you to take away from these videos is that I'm trying to teach you what is right and what is wrong. If the kind of English you speak doesn't sound like the kind of English I speak, that is okay. You know, you are great. What I want to do is give you the tools to harness language, to harness English, and use it any way you want. I mean, I'm saying I don't care what color your car is. It could be pink, it could be green, it could be purple, it could be paisley, you know. I'm just trying to make sure your wheels are on straight. You are a grammarian. You have made a study of grammar throughout your entire speaking and reading life. And I firmly believe that you can learn anything. Welcome to Grammar on Khan Academy. David out. Hi, everyone. My name is...
Okay, guys. Okay, yes. So basically, as you can see here, that there was an explanation, but also a very vivid example on what could be a difference between rules and conventions. So now, guys, we're gonna take around 3 minutes more or less. We're gonna go to the breakout rooms as usual, and I'd like you to discuss that. I'd like you to come up with a very clear idea on what's the difference between rules and conventions, of course, more specifically in the context of languages, okay? So that's the only thing you need to do. I'd like you to discuss this in the breakout rooms, and then we're gonna come back here, and we're gonna somehow clarify that. Okay, so let's do this.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I was thinking very similar to you, Dylan.
No, I don't know. Is on writing lie.
Okay, guys, so we're back in the main session, and I'd like to see if you guys, how would you guys answer the question that we posed before? What would be the difference between rules and conventions in the context of a language. And let's see who's gonna help us with that. I'd like to listen to, let me see. Perhaps John Gonzalez, would you please perhaps help us with that question?
Yes, teacher.
Mhm.
We make a discussion about that, and we agree that the rules is something that is mandatory, that
Yeah.
we and the convention is something that, for instance, we use in the speaking. Is something correct? We have to use too, but it's not mandatory to use. Um,
Well, yeah. When we talk, that's the first thing we need to say. So, for example, in the case of rules, as you said, that's mandatory, or also we can say that that's like the minimum. That's the minimum you need to have in order to be understood by others. So, if you are communicating in English, for instance, you need to have some basic grammar, right? Which is what allows you to be understood by the others. So it's like there is a minimum for that. And it's mandatory in that sense, in the sense that you need to have some grammar if you want people to understand you. But in the case of conventions, it's not like it's not mandatory, but conventions are flexible, let's say, or conventions adapt to the context, or conventions depend on the context, which is even better. So as conventions depend on the context, it means that depending on the context in which you are communicating, you would use different conventions, you see? But grammar is basically the foundation for everything. You need to have some grammar, right? So you need to have a grammar to communicate in any context. And it doesn't matter what kind of context it is, if it's a formal text, or if it's just a WhatsApp message, or if it's a academic presentation, or if it's a phone call. In all those cases, you need to have grammar, right? And we are talking about Spanish, English, for instance. You need to have grammar if you want to be understood. If you don't have that, nobody will ever understand you. But conventions change depending on those contexts, right? So depending on what you're doing, you might be using different conventions. So this is something they also call in Spanish, which is related, I mean, with something they call actos del aula in Spanish, which means that you need to understand the context, and based on the context, you would communicate differently. So sometimes it's super funny, but sometimes it's like we need to how can I say this? It's like we need to understand all those different contexts. So it's like sometimes, just to say it that way, sometimes myself, I believe I sometimes feel a little bit like ñero when talking with certain people about certain things, you see, because we use bad words or we use rude words. So I'm talking to friends, and perhaps we say really rude things, right? But sometimes you might feel very gomelo if you are talking to some other people about with some other people about some other things. So it's like you need to play with that. It's not like you have to be always sound like super formal or always sound super informal, but you need to be able to do both things, you see. So that's very important. And Clara says something about the lexicon. So based on the different contexts, lexicon and words change. Absolutely yes, Clara, absolutely yes. So for instance, if you are with friends and you're talking about something and you say, I don't know, like no marica, ¿qué le pasa? That's absolutely normal if we're talking to friends, right? No marica, ¿qué le pasa? Right? That's absolutely normal in the Colombian Spanish. But if you say that in the office, or in a yes, in a professional setting, that wouldn't be very nice. If you have a boss and your boss says like, hey, would you please help me with something, whatever, and you say como todo bien, marica, yo le ayudo con eso. You wouldn't say that to your boss, right? Because it's not right. it's not right. That's not the way we communicate in that context. Or also in the context of a class, right? We are expected to say certain things. So for example, in a class, we would hardly ever say a bad word. We would, like, it's not good to say a bad word in a class. And if we say that, we feel ashamed, right? But if we are in a whole different context, so if we are having some coffee or some beers with friends, we would use informal expressions, and that's absolutely okay. Imagine if you are having some beers or some drinks with your friends, and somebody says something, and you go like, I don't know, like, well, mira, yo creo que desde el punto de vista en que tú lo estás planteando suena algo improperioso. That's, what the hell? What are you saying, right? That's absolutely stupid. Like, why are you talking like that when you are just with friends? You wouldn't talk like that, right? So that's the point. We need to adapt to different contexts, and that's when conventions show up. You see, it's like we have different conventions for different contexts, and when we are writing, conventions refer to something very specific. In this case, conventions refer not just to how we adapt to different contexts, but to the words that we, I mean, the descriptions or the concepts that we need to understand to communicate effectively in academic writing. So this is very, very specific, and that's essentially what we are going to do today. So guys, I'd like to know if you have any question about what we've said so far. This being, as you can see, simply an introduction, but we are about to dive into the actual context. So concept. So I'd like to know if you have any question.
Teacher, I have a question.
Yes,
Modismo es otra cosa, ¿cierto? Modismo.
Well, yeah, well, it's related, but in that case, we are talking more about lexicon, as Clara actually noted. In that case, it would be refer more to words or expressions that we can use in certain contexts. And again, that's something we need to say. So depending on the context, we would use different sets of expressions or vocabulary, of course. But yeah, it's different, because what we're talking about here as language conventions is it's about all the, you know, concepts and words that we use to talk about, you know, how to organize language in a good way. Also, I'd like to know if you guys know what meta language is. Meta language, you know what that is? This, guys. You know what that is?
No, teacher.
Okay, well, this is something very important for people like you who are professionals on the language, you see? So as you can see, meta language has two words in it. So it's like meta and language, of course. So meta, we know that, for instance, metaphysics. So meta means like always like beyond, right? So when we talk about meta language, we talk about the language that we use to talk about the language, you see? So an example of meta language is words like verbs, subjects, nouns, adjectives. Those are words that we use to talk about other words, basically. Those are words we use to talk about the language itself. So, so this thing with the language conventions is related to this, because you as professionals in the language, you guys need to know a lot about meta language. You need to know about how to talk about the language, how to describe the language itself, you see? So that's why it's also important. So guys, before we actually start with this explanation, once again, I'd like to know if you have other questions or if you have other appreciations, something you'd like to see before we start with this. I don't know, by any chance, while I have a sip of coffee. No? Okay, so let's try to do this then. So let me just have the presentation here. So we saw that rules and conventions are different, right? So we are talking about language conventions today, but we saw that rules have to do with the minimum that we need to make something work. So they gave the example of the wheels of the car. So the wheels have to be on certain positions so the car actually moves. But when we talk about conventions, what the example they used was about the color of the car. So the car could have different colors, and that means that it would be something that depends on the context. So yeah, there is a relationship with that. So conventions have to do more with the right way of communicating in a specific context. It's not about the minimum. When we talk about conventions, we assume that we already have the minimum. So it's different. Okay, guys. So when we talk about language conventions and when we talk about the way we organize a text, and remember that for this second term, our objective is to write the best paragraph that you have ever written in your life. That's what we're gonna do. So when we are talking about writing a paragraph, and in general terms, when we are talking about writing, there are two basic concepts that we must keep in mind always, and that's related to what we did yesterday. So yesterday, when we were talking about this relative clauses, and some of you were like it was not very clear, like when it was a definite or non-definitive, and so it's like what that has to do with this. So whenever you're writing, when we write a paragraph, we know that a paragraph has several sentences, right? So in a paragraph, we may have 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences. And everything you write in a paragraph is related, right? So everything is somehow related. So there are two different concepts that we need to keep in mind, as I said, and the first one is subordination. So there is a subordination in a sentence when one clause is dependent on another. And that's the cases in which we use because, although, since, that kind of thing. So sometimes clauses can be subordinated. So we know that we write something and the next thing we write is subordinated. So it's like they have a different relationship. That's something we'll see in a moment in detail. But it's like there is subordination in a text. And there is also coordination in a text. So these are two ways in which we put together what we write. So when we're writing, we use several sentences, but how are they related, you say? And why a text has different paragraphs and not just one super big block of text, but why do we have different paragraphs? So that's something to always keep in mind, you say? So there are those two functions, let's say, and we need to always understand that there are subordination and coordination.
Teacher, sorry. Could we change the clauses with a sentence? It's like, which is when one sentence, no?
I don't get it. Like, what do you mean exactly?
I mean, clause is the same with sentence or phrase, which is when one sentence is dependent on another.
Thank you very much for saying that, Johanna, but because that's actually the core of what we're gonna do today. We're going to say that a clause is not the same thing as a sentence, and a phrase is definitely not a sentence or a clause. You see, we'll see that in a moment. We're going deeper. We're gonna get there, and I will answer that question today, as you will see. Okay, so no worries about that. So before that, I just wanted you to understand that there is like everything we write. Just think about that. Everything we write in a paragraph, just to start, could be subordinated or coordinated every time. You see, so whenever you write a paragraph, you need to identify those relations between the different sentences and clauses you write. Like, is this subordinated? Is this coordinated? That's something we always do. I mean, we need to keep in mind that there are relations inside a text. So, so just some examples of subordination. So, well, as we have the conjunctions here. So, for example, I like coffee because it's delicious. I like coffee because it's delicious. So there are two clauses. I like coffee and it's delicious. And this because creates a relation of subordination, right? So the second part of the sentence is subordinated to the first one because of that specific word. Okay, that's just an example. And the case of coordination, I like coffee and I also love reading. You see, so there are two different clauses inside that sentence. And as you can see, I'm saying two clauses inside the sentence. So that's part of what we are going to do in a moment. And we actually will come back to these two concepts later, just to see better if we understood. So guys, this is what I was telling Johanna before. So there are 4 key conventions, guys. And today, you need to learn this, and you need to put it deep in your heart, and you need to promise you will never forget this. This is super, super important. If you understand this, guys, and if you start playing with this, let's say, and you, I mean, if you understand this, I swear on my life that your writing is going to improve a lot if you can see this in a text. And as you'll see, this is not rocket science. Oh, by the way, do you know, guys, what rocket science is? You know what rocket science is, that expression? If you say that, if you, for instance, say, this is not rocket science, this is not rocket science. You know what that is? You know what that means, guys? This is not rocket science. You know what that is? It's an idiom, as you can say.
No, I don't know, teacher.
No. Well, if you, this expression is used to say that something is not hard. So if you want to say that something is not complicated, you say, well, this is not rocket science, which means this is not very complex. This is not very hard to understand, you say. And there is another way to, which is not to say that this is easy. No, it's like, it's not that hard. If you want to say that something is very easy, you know that there is another expression with which is, this is a piece of cake. This is a piece of cake. So this is a piece of cake means that something is very easy, you see. But this one is not to say that something is very easy. It's to say that something is not very hard. So guys, this is not rocket science, but sometimes people just tend to get confused with that. So we're gonna do it this way. But let me see if the order is right, because sometimes I like to explain this differently. We're gonna just follow this order. Okay, guys, so when you read a book, and think about Animal Farm, how is the book divided?
By chapters?
The book is divided in chapters, very good. And then the chapters, how are they divided?
Paragraph?
No.
Different scenes?
What's before? It could be scenes and everything, but let's just think about Animal Farm, which is not like that. So the book is divided in chapters. The chapters is divided in? Think about it. Pages, right? It's divided in pages. So you say the chapter 1 has 10 pages, has 25 pages, right? Great. And how are the pages divided? What happens with the chat box? How are the pages divided, guys?
The pages?
Paragraphs?
Paragraphs, very good. So we have book, chapters, pages, paragraphs, right? And this is very important because like, it's like if we ask you, if we say, what's a chapter? Well, we understand what a chapter is. It's like a section in a book. It's kind of easy. The pages are also very easy to understand because it's like, you know, physical pages. But in the case of the paragraph, we don't know it. I mean, we know what a paragraph is, but sometimes we tend to forget it. It's like sometimes people write a text and they have one single paragraph in a page, and that's just unbelievable. So normally a page should have around 2 to 3 paragraphs, but of course that depends on the kind of text. But anyways, we have paragraphs. And how are the paragraphs divided? Do you guys know that? How are the paragraphs divided?
In sentences?
There you go. The paragraph is divided in sentences. So it's like by now you guys could have like a map, right? So book, chapters, pages, paragraphs, sentences. And how are the sentences divided?
In words.
Words.
No, there is something before. That's why I don't like this order, because it's a little bit confusing. But no, sentences, guys, listen up. Sentences are divided into clauses, you see? So just to answer Johanna's previous question, sentences or clauses are not necessarily the same. They could be the same, and we'll see in a moment why, but they are not necessarily the same. So sentences are divided into clauses. Okay, so once again, we might have book, chapters, pages, paragraphs, sentences, clauses, right? Clauses. And you know what the next question is, right?
How is divided the clauses?
How are the clauses divided? I mean, we don't know exactly what a clause is right now. And we may even have certain issues knowing what a sentence is. But let's try. How could be clauses divided? We're almost there.
By words?
No.
Fragments.
Phrases?
By
Phrases. Phrases. Yeah. Phrases. Phrases. So we have, once again, we have the book. This could be a game. We have the book, we have the chapters, we have the pages, we have the paragraphs, we have sentences, then we have clauses, then we have phrases. And the question is now, of course, how are the phrases divided?
In fragments, like word category, maybe?
No, no. And actually, I'm going to change the color here, because as you'll see, we need to understand that fragments are something different, are something we need to see in a different way, let's say. So no, phrases are divided in words. You say they are divided into words. And that's where we are going to stop, because of course it would get a little bit into Chomsky's area. We know that we can also decompose words, you know, the typical trees and everything, right? That we can tear words apart and we can go deeper into the words, but we won't do this here. So I'm gonna just put it here just to say again the exercise we did. So we just said, like, for instance, we have a book which could be like a general, you know, structure. And from the book, we said that we may have chapters, right? So we have the book, we have chapters, and then from the chapters, we have pages, and from the pages, we also said we had paragraphs, right? So that's how we go. So far, that's how we are. Paragraphs, and then from the paragraphs, we have sentences, right? And from the sentences, we had clauses. From the clauses, we had phrases. From phrases, we had words. And that's where we're gonna stop, you see? So this is a possible sequence, let's say. You see, going from general to specific. So this is why writing a book is hard. You see, that's the reason why writing a book is something very complex to do, because it implies that you need to know how to do all these things. You need to know how to use words, to create phrases, to create clauses, to create sentences, to create paragraphs, to write pages, to write books, and to finally write a book. You see, so there is a very complex order, and that's something we're gonna be talking about today. So as you know, we wanna get here during this term. We are going to get here. We're going to get to write the best paragraph we have ever written. That is our objective. So in order to write a paragraph, we need to know this. We need to know how to create sentences, clauses, and of course phrases, and well, by extension, words. So as yesterday we were talking about clauses, and we know that clauses can be a part of a sentence. That's something we need to know. So now, as we have that, we need to know then what a clause is. Okay, so guys, basically this is what a clause should have to be a clause. So a clause has a subject and a complete verb. So a complete verb means that a verb is conjugated, you see? So that's essentially the minimum for a clause to exist. The problem here is that that's why I said be careful, and we need to know the concepts and everything in English, because if we want to translate them, it becomes confusing. Clause sometimes could be I mean, if you ask me what a clause is, I would say in Spanish, this is una oración, you see? That's what a clause is. But what is a sentence? Well, a sentence is una oración. So you see, it's confusing. So in English, we have these words, and these words are very important for us to understand better what that means. Because if you ask me to translate that into Spanish, it's confusing to me. It's not that hard. That's not that easy. So a clause is just that, guys. It's very simple. So a clause is a structure that has a subject and it has a complete verb. And my question is, guys, we need to understand also that. What is a subject? What's a subject, guys? What is that? Huh? What's a subject?
It's the person that you're going to talk in a sentence.
The person? Is it the person?
But not only a person, like who makes the action.
Who makes the action? That's like a person, actually. Because you say who and makes the action.
Could be the person or the thing that the action.
Okay, that's a little bit better because we know it's people or it's also things. But you know what? It's not necessarily who does the action, because actually that has a different name. When we talk about, you know, the conventions, that is what we call, that's what we call an agent. You see, so the agent. So the agent of an act in a sentence, the agent is the one who performs the action. So if you say she speaks French, she is the agent of the action, and that not always happens. You see, because it's not like always something performs an action. So we need to be careful. But in general terms, guys, subjects are the topic of the clauses or the sentences. In this case, the clauses. The subject is the topic, is what we refer to. So in some cases, it could be someone or something that performs an action, but in some others, it could be just something that we are talking about. And actually, the two examples we have here are like that. So we have education and Colombia. And as you can see here, we are talking about those two things or concepts, you see? So anyways, for a clause to be a clause, we need to have a subject, which means that we are talking about something, which is a noun, right? And then we have to have a complete verb or tense, which is that the verb is conjugated, you see? Remember that whenever we say tense, we refer to what we call in Spanish tiempos verbales, right? So a complete verb is a verb which is conjugated, basically. ¿Listo? Recuerden siempre eso, cuando digan como un verbo completo, significa que está conjugado, se está usando. No está en infinitivo, como to be, to go, to wait. No, it's conjugated, you see? So those are the two criteria for a clause to be a clause. So for example, education is the key to prosperity. Colombia is in the north of South America, you see? Those are two clauses because they have a subject, which is education in this case, and Colombia in this other one. And they also have a complete verb, which is the verb to be, right? Is. So that's a clause, you see? It is as simple as that. So far, so good, guys. Do we understand that?
Yes, sir.
This is a piece of cake, right? So that's a clause. A clause is that. You say a clause is a structure that includes a subject and a complete verb. That's it, nothing else to say, you see? But we have different kinds of clauses. We have different kinds of clauses. And as you'll see, this is related to what we did yesterday. So the first kind of clause is the independent clause. So if the clause is independent, it means that it doesn't need other information. Like the clause itself makes sense to us. So if you read these two clauses, you understand, right? Colombia is in the north of South America. Okay, yes, thank you, right? We understand that. Education is the key to prosperity. Thank you, I understand that. You see, that's it. So that's what an independent clause is. It's a clause that can work by itself. You see, es como solita ya tiene sentido, the independent clause. So we don't need more information. Just with that clause, that's enough. See? So if you see this text just like that, you say, okay, I understand. So that's an independent clause. But we also have dependent clauses, you see? And this is when we talk about dependent clauses, we say, okay, I understand why clauses can be part of a sentence. So if we read these two clauses, what happens, guys? If I say, because I like pizza, how do you feel about that?
That you are more specific.
That I'm more specific? What do you mean by that?
We need more information about that because I like pizza. What?
Yeah, there you go. So that's it, Johanna. So we need, when we have a dependent clause, what we see here is that we need more information. So because I like pizza, because my friends are stupid, you see? So it's like, what, right? Like we are missing something. So that is a dependent clause. In the case of independent clauses, you read them and you say, okay, I understand. That's it. But in this case, dependent clauses is like, we know that there is more information and there is information we are missing, right? So remember, guys, that when we started, we said that there are two concepts that we need to always keep in mind. And those concepts were subordination and coordination. So when you feel that there is something missing, that's when subordination shows up. So it means that these two clauses must be subordinated to something else. That's why we say, I'm missing something. I don't understand what you mean. Like, because I like pizza, what do you mean by that? So that's a dependent clause, a clause that needs something else, that needs other information to be completed, which is different from dependent clauses. So guys, that is clauses. Remember, clauses are structures that need to have a subject and a complete verb to be a clause. But we have two different kinds of clauses. Independent clauses, which are clauses that they work by themselves, they don't need complementary information, right? And dependent clauses, they do need complementary information. So in this case, we have a subject, which is education or Colombia, and we also have the complete verbs or conjugated verbs, which is to be. Here we also have them, right? We have a subject in this case that could be either I or pizza, right? So we have I, for instance, and we have a complete verb, which in this case is like, and in this case is are. So we have the two conditions, but we are missing something. You see, we feel that there is something we don't know and we need to know to understand the whole thing. Is it clear, guys, so far?
Yes, teacher. If I say I like pizza, does I like pizza is an independent clause because it's good information, yes?
Very good, Johanna. Yes, in that case, it would be an independent clause because we don't have the because, right? Which is the word that subordinates the rest of it. So yes, if we say just I like pizza, in that case, it would be an independent clause. But in this case, we know that it's part of another thing. So that's what clauses are, structures that have a subject and a complete verb, and they can be either dependent or independent. That's what we get. And then we have, sentences. And as you can see, sentences are something different necessarily. So as we have some conditions, and I will also again note it, this in yellow color, these are the conditions for clauses. These are the conditions. Subject, complete verb, that's a clause. In the case of sentences, we also have conditions. The first one, it has to have full meaning, and they cannot be dependent, you see? So as you can see, sentences are different from clauses. They are not the same thing. So full meaning means that we don't need other information, that we read it and we say, okay, we get it. So it's not like there is something missing. And they are not dependent. Well, it's the same thing basically, right? So that they have to be independent. So be careful, because independent clauses can also be sentences. You see, that's a little bit confusing. But as you can see here, basically a sentence is a sentence because it has full meaning. Just keep that in your minds. A sentence is a sentence because it has full meaning. Okay, so that's the essential difference between a sentence and a clause. A clause can have full meaning or not. It's like there are two possibilities in the case of clauses, because they can be dependent or independent. But sentences, they are always independent. They have to have full meaning. So that's what a sentence is. Okay, guys? So if the sentence doesn't have full meaning, if it needs more information, well, that's not a sentence. In that case, it would be a dependent clause. Do you get it, guys, so far?
Yes.
Yes. So I have a very wonderful, magnificent, beautiful example of what a sentence could be. What a sentence could be. So Deportes Tolima is the best team of Colombia. So it's like it has full meaning because all the information we need to know there. And apart from that, it's an absolute truth, you see? So it's like we have no doubt about that, right? So this is an example of a sentence because all the information is there and we know this is true. So it's like perfect. So even if Felipe doesn't like it, it is. Okay, so that's an example of a sentence, you see? So it's actually kind of easy to understand this. So we know, as we will see in a moment, sentences can be composed of clauses. And I don't know if I have an example here. No, I have to show it to you right away. So guys, the point here is that as we can see, clauses can be inside a sentence, you see? So let's do a couple of examples so we understand that a little bit better. So for example, let's go back with the example of the pizza, right? So for example, I would like to go to Italy. What is this, guys? What is this? Is this a sentence, a clause? What is this? I would like to go to Italy. What is that?
A clause?
That could be a clause. What kind of clause?
Independent.
Independent, right? Because if I just put the period here, I would like to go to Italy. It makes sense, right? It's like we understand. We don't feel like there is something missing. No, it's like, okay, I understand. I would like to go to Italy. So that is an independent clause. But remember that independent clauses can be also sentences. So this could be an independent clause or this could be a sentence. And why? Why can it be a sentence, guys? What is the reason why independent clauses can be considered also as sentences? Why? There is one reason.
Teacher,
because okay.
Who's talking? So let's assign turns, if you will. So who wants to talk, guys?
Me, teacher.
Okay, so we're gonna go with John and then with Lina. So John.
Well, because the independent clause and the sentence have a full meaning.
Excellent, excellent. I like it. I will go over that in a second. I will listen now to Lina and then I will say something. So Lina, what you wanted to say something?
Yes, I will to say something similar that the dependent sentences give full information or give a complete information about something.
Independent, you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, both of you are right. So the reason basically is that it has full meaning. So full meaning means that we don't need more information. So a sentence can be an independent clause. You see? So that's basically how it goes. So this clause itself can be a sentence because it has full meaning, but we can add more information, right? So we can remember subordination, coordination. So it's like we can add more information that way. So if we want to subordinate something to this, we would use a preposition like because, right? So because. This is the most stupid reason for going to Italy, because I know that Italy has so many other things to do, of course, but this is just an example, because I like pizza. And then we go like, okay, whatever. But the point is that the sentence makes sense. So what is this, guys? A sentence or a clause? What we have here?
That is a sentence.
That is a sentence. And what's the reason why it's a sentence?
Because
why? Yeah.
I think because it gives like complete information and it's more specific. It's like specific.
It has full meaning, right? As we said before, it has full meaning. That's why this is a sentence. Now, is there any clause here, guys? Is there any clause here in the sentence?
Because
No? The question is a little bit weird, I know.
There is coordination because it has because.
Coordination? You sure about that?
Okay. No.
Well, the point is that now you guys are... Yeah. Let me rephrase my question, because my question was very confusing. My question now is, how many clauses are here?
2 clauses.
Okay.
And it is they are supporting the sentence. Or I don't know how to say that, but it's a subordinator. The clauses are, I would like to go to Italy, and the other one is, I like pizza.
Excellent, Tanya. That was great. So yes, there are 2. So this is the first clause, right? So this sentence has 2 clauses. This is the number 1. And the second clause we could say is this. You see? So this is the second clause, but let's put it on blue color. So we have two different clauses here, as you can see. And the 2 clauses together make a sentence. You see? So the first, and the function we have here is subordination, as Tanya said. It's subordination, because it's always subordination, okay? It's always subordination. So this is a subordinated clause, this one, which means that this clause is an addition to this other. So this one can work alone, but this one cannot work alone. We saw it before, you see? So this sentence has 2 different clauses, as you can see here. We have an independent clause here, which can be a sentence itself, and we have a dependent clause here, you see? So this is so important. Why is it important? It's not important to say independent versus dependent versus subordination. That's not the point. The point is that when we understand these structures, we avoid lots of mistakes. Just to give you an example, one of the mistakes that we find the most is subject-verb agreement, and also the tenses. So it happens sometimes that when we are writing, we are writing in simple past, and then we end up writing in present, so there is a crazy mix. And the reason is this, because we don't see the clear structure of the different clauses and sentences. So when we see that, we are more aware of the tenses that we need to use, and also of the way we are presenting information, you see? So that's why this is super important. So there you go, guys. We have 2 different clauses here, 1 single sentence. So this is a sentence because it has full meaning and it has 2 different clauses. Do you have any question about this, guys?
Nope.
Okay. So this is an example of subordination because of this, right? So this is subordination. Because remember that when we started, we said that there are two basic concepts here on this slide, right? So we said that there are two different concepts. So we said that the first one was subordination, right? So what happens if we try to do some coordination here? So if we have a completely different sentence. So for example, actually let's do it with the same one. So if we go like this, I would like to go to Italy and, for instance, and I don't know, I would like to go to Italy and Greece. And Greece. In this case, this is also a sentence, right? This is also a sentence, but this is a little bit more complex because in this case, this is a sentence because it has full meaning, but it's also, in this case, this is also the same independent clause we had before. And in this case, and Greece, this is something complex because the thing is that normally, if we wanted to keep the full structure, we would say, I would like to go to Italy and I would like to go to Greece. And I would like to go to Greece. You see, this would be the full thing, right? This would be the full sentence if we actually wanted to do it that way, right? So in this case, there is coordination and the two clauses are independent, right? Because they have exactly the same structure. The problem here is that that would be redundant. So that's why we just skip some words, right? So we know that there are some words which are optional, which is pretty much the whole thing. And that's why we eliminate them. I would like to go to Italy and to Greece. But in this case, we know the relationship is a little bit different. But still, we would have two different clauses inside a sentence. Okay, guys, so that's essentially how it works. So let's go back here. So just to remember, a sentence has full meaning and it's not dependent. Then the next thing, it's phrases. It's phrases. So this is really confusing, guys, because in Spanish, and I'm still struggling with that. In Spanish, we say oración and we say frase, right? And that's the reason why when we do that in English, it gets confusing because it's different. So what is a phrase, guys? Phrases in English, phrases are parts of sentences. They are also a group of related words. Look at that, that's very important. They are a group of related words. They have subject or verb, but they never have subject and verb, you see? So this is very confusing, guys, and you have to be very careful. And actually, I remember, like I don't know, last year, I was using a book. I think it was Navigate, the book we used for this class, but in another level. And they use the word phrase to talk about sentences. So we need to be careful because even sometimes in English, they use this word in a different way. So we have to be careful, always to be very critical when we are reading. But if we want to be very precise, very specific about the use of phrases, this is what a phrase is. So a phrase is a part of a sentence. It is a group of related words. This is the most important thing. It's a group of related words. So we know that a phrase is never a clause, it's never a sentence. It's just a group of related words. And they can be a group of related verbs regarding a subject or a verb, but they never have subject and verb, you see? So for example, my question is, guys, in this first phrase, my favorite food, what's the verb here, guys? What's the verb here in my favorite food? What's the action in the first one? Who knows that? Are you sure about that?
Well, there is no verb, teacher.
Are you guys sure about that?
Don't have a verb, it's a subject, yes.
Okay,
Or
and what about the next one? Your beautiful eyes. What's the verb there?
It doesn't have a verb because there is a subject and you cannot put a subject and a verb together.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So none of these have verbs because, as I said before, it's a group of related words and it has to be either subject or verb, but not both of them. You see, so we have three different words, a group of words, but they have to be related. And how are they related? Well, they are related because they refer to a subject. You see, they refer to a subject. They don't refer to a verb, you see? So my favorite food, we have three different words, but they refer to only one thing, my favorite food, you see? Your beautiful eyes, we have three words, but they refer to one thing, which is the eyes of a person which are beautiful, right? But now there is another question, which is, well, we have more examples, by the way. Oh, but I don't want to go there yet. This is a very complex question, believe me. And the question is, how do you say this in Spanish then? So what we in English describe as phrases, what is it in Spanish? Because I said before, phrases are not frases, okay? No, las phrases no son frases, pero como un pequeño paréntesis, y lo que les decía ahorita, chicos, porque me pasó a mí. O sea, yo estudié eso cuando estaba en la universidad y eso está en el libro que les compartí, en Right to be Read. Vamos a llegar allá. Está toda esa carreta viene de allá. Pero el año pasado, leyendo uno de los libros de inglés que se utilizan en la universidad, que son de Oxford, además, o sea, no es cualquier editorial, decía como read the following phrases, bla, bla, bla. Entonces utilizaban la palabra phrases para referirse a oraciones y yo como, ups, esto se supone que no es correcto, ¿sí? Entonces ahora tengo como ese dilema, porque eso fue como un día un poco traumático desde un punto de vista filológico, ¿no? Como encontrar eso y como que uno dice, ¿a quién le creo? ¿A Cambridge, que me dijo esto, como que phrases es esto? ¿O a Oxford, que lo utilizó en un libro tal cual? Entonces, si queremos ser como puristas, por así decirlo, así súper técnicos, nunca una phrase es una frase. Pero me he dado cuenta que editoriales y que gente que pues, se supone que sabe, lo utiliza. Entonces, como que tengamos cuidado, ¿sí? Hay que tener cuidado, porque finalmente las lenguas son flexibles, cambiantes, y puede que llegue un momento en el que phrase se utilice para referirse a una sentence de la misma manera. Podría pasar. Pero en esencia son dos cosas súper diferentes. So that's the point. When I say, what's a phrase in Spanish? How do you say phrase in Spanish? The actual answer is very confusing. You know, it's super confusing. So I don't know if you want to give it a try. How would you say phrase in Spanish? Because it's not frase. I know, it's kind of hard. Because in Spanish, believe me, you will not believe what's the translation. Guys.
Phrases are something that describe?
Excuse me?
Phrases are something that describe?
No. No, the point here is what's the translation for the word phrase? That's where we want to get. So guys.
¿Idea? De pronto.
No.
maybe something like an expression, maybe?
No. No, I'm sorry. So thank you guys for trying because that's the spirit. But no, a phrase is what we call in Spanish, listen to this, sintagma. Sintagma. ¿Sí? ¿Y por qué digo eso? Pues por la definición. Porque si una phrase es una group of related words, los que han estado estudiando a Chomsky, que eso es como, wow, sí, es como que yo sé que algunos de ustedes lo han tenido que hacer y es súper complejo. Eso es importante dentro de esa teoría de Chomsky. Un group of related words, palabras, grupos de palabras que están relacionadas. Eso es lo que es un sintagma, ¿ok? Entonces ustedes buscan, googlean qué es un sintagma es esto, una phrase, basically. So phrases are what we in Spanish, like, and I say, well, we is not normal people, but people who study languages, I think. They describe as excuse me, as, yeah, no, I'm Chomsky, there you go, as sintagmas, you see? No sé si ya han tenido que estudiar sintagmas en alguna clase, ¿no?
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Some of us we have morphology and syntax.
I know, right? There you go, morphology. Because I studied this in a subject that I had in the university, which was called Morfología Española. Wow, super painful, to be honest. But there you go. A phrase is a syntagma. So we have one, we know that phrases can be, as we have it here, subject or verb, but never both. It's subject or verb. So the first one is phrases that have subjects, which is what we call noun phrases. So we have noun phrases like this: my favorite food, your beautiful eyes, a cool song, an amazing movie, you see? So we don't have verbs here, right? These are just nouns. And all of these examples, we have three words which are related because they are nouns, basically. So these are examples of noun phrases, okay? This is something we call in Spanish sintagma nominal. You see, that's what they call it in Spanish. Los sintagmas nominales son eso, grupos de palabras que se refieren a un nombre o a un sustantivo, mejor. ¿Listo? But in English, we call them noun phrases. I believe in English, it sounds more friendly. You see, in Spanish, it sounds like something, like almost like a disease or something, like como tengo un sintagma en el hígado, right? It sounds like something you might die of. But in English, it sounds a little bit more friendly, like noun phrases, you see? So, okay, there you go. So those are noun phrases, groups of words which are just nouns, no verbs whatsoever. But we also have verb phrases, you see, verb phrases. So we have words together which refer just to actions, you see? So the perfect forms are a good example of that, or here we go. So for instance, was used is two different words, but they refer to one single verb. I mean, one single action, sort of, you see? Have worked, were discovered, are coming, you see? In this group of words, we have these two words together, and we don't have any subject. We don't have any noun here. So was used could be she was used, it was used, he was used, you see? So it's like we don't know the subject. Have worked, same thing. They have worked, I have worked, you have worked, we have worked. So we don't know. Were discovered and are coming, same thing, you see? So those are verb phrases, groups of words which are related, you see? So, guys, I'd like to know if you have any question about phrases. No?
No, teacher.
There we go. So phrases is a little bit easier to understand because phrases is just groups of words, but they are groups of words which are related. So they are related because they are noun phrases or they are verb phrases. That's basically it, you see? There you go. So, and then we have fragments, guys. We have fragments. So I said before that we need to be careful with fragments because fragments are let's say, problems. We could call it like that. So fragments are the errors that we have in our texts. So if we say, I have a fragment in this paragraph, it means that you have a problem in the paragraph, you see? So this is a problem because they are always incomplete. They are dependent. Sometimes they are dependent clauses or phrases, but in general terms, a fragment it's a piece of your text which has a problem and we need to correct it, you see? So whenever we say, okay, like for instance, that paragraph has 3 fragments, it means that the paragraph has 3 parts that we need to correct, you see? And to correct it, well, we take into account what we said before. So if it's dependent, if independent, if it's coordination, if it's certain subordination. So sometimes we need to add something or we need to delete something. I mean, that's essentially it. So this is a little bit easier because fragments is simply that, guys. Errors in the text. So these errors are generated because perhaps we don't understand something from before. So we don't understand very, very well what a sentence is, or we are not using the clauses very well, or the phrases are not complete. I mean, whatever, right? So those are basically the fragments, just problems that we may find. So guys, there are, in general terms, just to conclude this, there are 2 concerns. So when we are writing the text, we need to be careful with two things. So we need to always think about two things. First of all, about the parallel structure. So as you can see here, when similar structures in a series are constructed the same way. So we need to see, for example, she likes running, swimming, and to go on hikes. You see? That's a problem with the parallel structure. So that means that we are using gerunds, and then we use an infinitive phrase. So we need, when you have a look at your paragraphs, you need to see how you're writing. So you need to keep the structure, you see? So this is an example. I'm gonna highlight it here a little bit better. This is an example of a problem with parallel structure. So we say, she likes running, swimming, and to go on hikes. So no, we should say, she likes running, swimming, and go hiking, for example. So we need to keep the same structure always. Also, inappropriate shifts. So they occur when the writer is not consistent, either within or between sentences. For instance, if the writer switches the tense from past to present, this is what I said before. Or if the writer changes pronouns, causing confusion or unclear references. So these are two things that we need to keep in mind. But this is just for you to think of the importance it has, but we will see that in detail later. So, well, this is the book we are using. So guys, I'd like to know if you have any question about what I've said before. No? Okay, so guys, what's the homework that we have for tomorrow? So first, we need to upload the texts that we had from the previous homework, right? So, which we talked about at the beginning. We will upload that to a Google Drive link that I will share with you, and I'm actually gonna do that right away. So I'm gonna do this in this very moment so you guys have it and you don't have any problem. It's here in the week number 8. It's going to be called Free Writing. That's a folder, and I'm going to share that with all of you right away. So guys, I need you to, I need you to be super responsible with this. I need you to enter this folder. You will enter the folder and just to upload your work. And be careful not to delete anybody else's work, because anyways, you know that we will see who did something, and well, that's not the point. So I'm just sharing the link with you in this moment, guys. This is the link to Google Drive. So you need to enter to this link and just to upload your writing. It's just a file. The file has to have your name. So for instance, Lina Rodriguez, that's it. So the name of the file is Lina Rodriguez, that's it. And she would paste the text there. What is the text that she needs to upload? You guys remember? So the text that we are going to upload is this exercise, guys. It's the exercise B, okay? So you had to choose 2 topics and write for a total of 30 minutes. That's something you were supposed to do already. So you simply had to write on 2 of these topics that we have here. You see, just 2 of them. So it's like you use those 2 questions and then you write about that. That's it. So that's what we're gonna upload there, okay? And tomorrow, we are going to have a look at that and we're gonna do some other exercises. So the point tomorrow, guys, we are going to do 2 things. First, you guys, we are going to exchange the texts and you guys will simply simply read the texts and just make comments about that. So you say, I don't know, observation. So you say, well, I don't know, sentences are a little bit long and this vocabulary is very specialized, or this vocabulary is like it doesn't sound very well, or you are using a lot of contractions. I mean, general views on that. Okay, so it's like you guys are going to simply make very general observations. And then we're gonna do a very simple exercise in which we are going to make groups And we are going to select some of the texts, and we are going to extract examples of course, sentences, dependent clauses, independent clauses, phrases, okay? Fragments. That's what we're gonna do tomorrow. So we're gonna be working with those texts, making a very general analysis. So you guys will have some peer reviews, some peer feedback. And then in groups, we are going to extract examples of language conventions out of the texts that you created, and we'll see some of the common mistakes we may have. Is it clear, guys, what we gotta do?
Yes, sure. Yes, teacher. I'm sorry, we have to upload both of the tests.
No, just one.
The point two.
No,
just one.
Just be this
About
one. The one that is called shared writing. I actually put the wrong name. It's share writing, no free. It's share writing.
Yes, because in the point B is like at least 2 texts and about 30 minutes. So we have to upload one text or both.
No, it's no.
Because
actually,
there are 2 topics in the.
Yes. So, well, that's a very good question, because here what you were supposed to write about 2 things during 30 minutes. You see, so we're gonna make a little change here just to make it a little bit. Okay, guys, listen up, because we're gonna make a little change here just to make it better. So by now, you guys already did this. So what you guys had to do was to choose 2 topics and write during 30 minutes. So what I would like you to do is to, as Lina mentioned, to choose then one of the 2 topics that you wrote about and upload that, you see? So for example, let's say Lina selected the questions 3 and 4, for example, and she wrote something during 30 minutes, right? What she's gonna do now is to select one of the 2 questions and copy paste the text of that question. You get it? So that text could be a full page, or it could be 1 paragraph. It depends on you, because remember that you had to do it for 30 minutes, okay? So also, guys, you could do the exercise again just to make it better if that's the case. So you could set a timer. So it's like, okay, I have 30 minutes. And I will write about these 2 topics. So I will write about the first one, okay, and then I write on the second one. Then you read the 2 texts and you select the one that you like better, the one that you like the most, you see? So you will choose one, and that's what you're gonna upload. Do you understand?
Yes, teacher, it's clear.
That's it. So it's about the exercise B, but once you finish doing this exercise, you will choose only one of the topics, and you will share the one that you prefer, the one that you like more, okay? That's what you're gonna put there. And tomorrow, yes,
I don't understand by 30 minutes.
Yes, yes, the point here is, this is the point. Like in the first exercise here, they say, write at least this number of words, 75 words. But here, what they say is like, write during 30 minutes. So how would you do that? You can take your cell phone or whatever, and you set a timer for 30 minutes. So then you write freely during 30 minutes. So it's not about the number of words, it's about the time that you will use, you see? So you will write during 30 minutes. It doesn't matter how much you write, but it's just to write freely. That's the point, to write freely. So some people would write a lot during 30 minutes, some others would write less. No problem, you see, that's the point. Sí, es como les decía, en el primero les dicen, escriban tantas palabras, en el segundo le dicen, escriba durante tanto tiempo. Y no, escribiendo durante 30 minutos, puede que escriba un montón o muy poco, no importa. Lo que importa es tomarse ese tiempo, que el ejercicio, o sea, ustedes se sienten durante 30 minutos a escribir sobre esos 2 temas. Y después elijan el escrito del tema que les haya gustado más de esos 2 que escribieron, ¿sí? And that's it. Okay, so that means that there is not a minimum number of words or a maximum number of words. No, there is no minimum, there is no maximum. Of course, you cannot say like, no, it's like I was thinking so much and I just wrote one sentence in 30 minutes. No, right? That doesn't sound like a normal thing. It's not like you guys are crazy or something, but come on. So yeah, it might be 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs. I don't know. It depends on you. But the point is that you need to focus and take those 30 minutes for that exercise, okay? That's essentially it. Okay, guys, how do you feel about this topic? How do you feel about that?
Well, in my case, I really like the topic because it improves our writing, also organizes our ideas, and it's some difficult because we have to pay a lot of attention in the topics, and we have to identify the concepts and difference between the concepts, and that's it. But I really like the topic.
Okay, yes, I know. At the beginning, it might sound a little bit confusing, like, you know, like, yeah, just confusing. Like we sometimes don't know exactly what that means. But yeah, it's like, this is important, not just to know what a clause or what a sentence is, but to write better. That's what we want to do. So as you'll see when we finish this term, I'm 100% sure that your texts will be more organized and you will understand better how to write them. That's a promise. So yeah, guys, I will, with the exercise we're gonna do tomorrow, we're gonna explore this a little bit better. We're gonna, you know, understand some other things which are also very important. But I believe that somehow we are on the right track. So I'm going to call the attendance now, and then we are free to go to have some breakfast. It feels like having breakfast by this time. Okay. Okay, let's do this. So, Brian Aguilera.
Yes, teacher.
John Javier. Ana María, buen día.
I'm here, teacher.
Andrés Felipe Bueno. Well, he was here. Angie Carvajal.
I'm here.
José Díaz.
Yes, teacher.
Tatiana Espitia.
Present.
Yelitza García.
Here, teacher.
Tania Gómez.
Here, teacher.
John González.
Here, teacher.
Santiago Hernández.
Here, teacher.
Natalia Huesa. Ashley Huesa.
Teacher.
I'm sorry. Marcela Jiménez, they're here. Linda López. Okay. Johanna Martinez.
Present.
Clara Monroy.
Present, teacher.
Tatiana Bando.
Present, teacher.
Ana María Ortiz.
Present, teacher.
Dylan Páez.
Present, teacher.
Juan Páramo.
Present, teacher.
Estefanía Portugués.
Present, teacher.
Lina Rodríguez.
Present, teacher.
Daniela Rodríguez.
Present, teacher.
Carlos Rojas.
Teacher.
María Alejandra Triana.
Present, teacher.
And Alejandra Velandia.
Me, teacher.
Okay, guys.
Teacher, I am here. I am sorry, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, guys. Listo, chicos. Entonces, como les decía, para cerrar, la idea, como para que ustedes también lo vean, como el propósito, nuestro objetivo en este corte es, como les decía al principio, escribir el mejor párrafo que hayamos escrito nunca. ¿Listo? Entonces, por eso estamos como preparándonos de esta manera, que nosotros sepamos lo que hablábamos ahorita, que puede parecer una obviedad, ¿no? Que el libro está dividido en capítulos, páginas, párrafos, eso es como, ay, no me digas, ¿sí? Puede ser muy obvio, pero es importante que nosotros entendamos esa estructura y que cuando veamos un párrafo lo podamos dividir de esa manera. En ese momento sabemos que pues, el párrafo tiene sentences y que las sentences pueden tener varias clauses o solamente una, y que esas clauses tienen phrases y que las phrases tienen palabras, ¿cierto? Y hasta ahí vamos a llegar, aunque podríamos ir más allá, pero no, vamos a llegar hasta ahí. Y en la medida en que nosotros entendamos eso, también sabemos que, bueno, por ejemplo, si párrafo tiene 4 o 5 sentences, cada sentence es diferente y cada sentence tiene un objetivo diferente dependiendo del momento o de la posición que tiene dentro de un párrafo. Si nosotros empezamos a ver eso, el ejercicio de la escritura, como eso es un arte en sí mismo, es como un ejercicio de composición. Por eso nosotros decimos eso también en inglés, ¿no? Como compose a text. No es simplemente escribir, ¿sí? Y simplemente ir soltando ideas durante un tiempo para ocupar una cantidad de palabras, sino como les digo, dentro del texto, cada parte tiene un propósito específico. Cada oración dentro del párrafo tiene un objetivo, pero también cada párrafo tiene un objetivo dentro de una página y cada página también a su vez, en fin. Es toda una cadena. Entonces la idea es que podamos ver eso. Si nosotros podemos ver ese enfoque, como esa lógica, esa dinámica casi que artística al momento de escribir un párrafo, les aseguro que eso va a tener un impacto tremendo, ¿sí? Porque la forma en la que escribimos en general es diferente a la que hablamos. Y además sumándole el hecho de hacerlo en inglés. Entonces, como usted habla en español, no es como usted debería escribir en español. Y como usted habla en inglés, no necesariamente es como habla en español. Y como escribe en inglés, no necesariamente es como escribe en español. Entonces, casi que nosotros debemos tener a esas alturas 4 convenciones o 4 como capacidades diferentes. ¿Sí me entienden? O sea, hablar muy bien español y hablar muy bien en inglés son 2 cosas diferentes. Escribir muy bien en español y escribir muy bien en inglés son 2 cosas diferentes. Hablar en español y escribir en español son 2 cosas diferentes, ¿sí? Entonces hay como una diferencia entre lenguas, pero también entre las habilidades comunicativas. Y eso es con lo que estamos jugando y pues chévere que incluso nos emocionemos para que lo hagamos súper bien. Okay, guys, so do not forget to do the homework that I just suggested. And tomorrow, we're going to have some fun reading our texts and extracting like clauses and sentences and, stuff like that. I'm sure we're going to have some fun tomorrow. Okay, so guys, thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, teacher.
See ya.